Welcome to the Ellevate podcast, conversations with women changing the face of business. And now your hosts, Kristy, Wallace, and Maricella, Herrera.
Hello and welcome to the Ellevate podcast. This is your host, Kristy Wallace, with my co-host, Maricella, Herrera, and we are so excited to be here for the first episode of 2022. Can you believe it, Maricella? We are in a new year.
We are. Are we? I feel like we're still in 2020 in a way. But also, welcome to the new and improved Ellevate podcast. Trying some new things today.
Yes.
New year, new podcast.
New year, new podcast. No, we are definitely looking to switch it up a little bit. We want to hear from you. Let us know what you like about it or what you want to see in the next episodes. You can always tweet at us or tag us on social media, Ellevate Network, hashtag #ElevatePod. We want to hear from you. We're starting this year off with a little bit of a change up in the format, getting to know Maricella and I a bit more, talking about the things that matter to us and I think to all of us, the issues and topics that are really relevant and important. And as always, that secret sauce of the Ellevate voices and our guests who share their stories, their experience, their knowledge and inspiration. And we cannot wait to be on this 2022 journey with all of you.
Yeah. So, Kristy, how was the end of your year, beginning of this new year?
It was good. I mean, it's still a tricky time with COVID and holidays, and just it's nuanced. I think we took so much for granted in the past, these relationships and coming together, and unfortunately there's many people who are no longer with us during this time to celebrate. So it's like I said, it's nuanced, it's complicated. I feel very fortunate to have some amazing people in my life and to celebrate with them. But certainly, I'm worried about people's health, and I'm worried about my health and my family, and just all that the future has to bring. There's still so many unknowns. How about you?
Yeah, 100%. It was. So to be honest, it was really hard. So I haven't been home for the holidays in a couple of years, and so this was the first time I was going back, or I went back with, for the holidays. And I hadn't, like, the last 2 years that I spent the holidays alone in New York, I kind of, or like with my friends, but not with my family. I was very, very sad. I really wanted to see my family. I really wanted to be back home. And then this year, when I knew I was going to go, the amount of stress that I just absorbed for some reason, and I don't even know why, like I just put it on myself. I think it was, scary because of traveling with COVID, but also, and like things were getting kind of crazy at that point. And I haven't been with the family in so long, and I've had some family emergencies in the last year. So like having to deal with that. So I was just very, very anxious. But once I was there, it was nice to be with family. And a lot of the worries didn't matter as much. So I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful that I got to go. I'm very grateful that I got to come back. And it was a good holiday season. Good end of the year.
Yeah. Well, and as we head into 2022, what are your thoughts about this year?
It's, oh my God, it's so interesting. The last roundtable of the year that we did for Rising Leaders, and for those of you who don't know what our roundtables are, we do these weekly online get-togethers, basically, at Ellevate, where we have breakout rooms and we have a guest expert talk about a topic, and then we, kind of get into the nitty-gritty of like our own challenges and get advice from other people. They're really powerful spaces where you can be safe and honest and realize that you're not alone, as well as get some good advice. But for the last one of the year, we did more just a reflection and sharing and like what's coming up, like what are people hoping for next year. And I was so excited because not only were people just really great sharing it. But all I could hear, like the underlying theme I could hear is one that I had been thinking about too, which is like, let's just be unapologetically happy in 2022. Like, no more putting ourselves last, no more, yeah, this is okay just because this is the status quo and it's too hard to change anything. Like, come on, it's time to really take responsibility for our happiness and like, screw this. Life is short.
Yeah, yeah, I love that theme of just, live your best life, live unapologetically. And I think we've had a lot of research on this lately and some great conversations about that in the executive roundtable, which I lead every Tuesday at 1. It's similar themes, but I think a little bit of a nuance around how we support our teams and our companies, really how
Mm-hmm.
leadership has changed in the ways that we support and lead during this time. And then how we, really make that commitment to ourselves too, right? And so, to be unapologetically happy, it's understanding kind of what you need and not apologizing for taking that.
Mm-hmm.
There was this really interesting article that I had actually forwarded it to you, Maricella, earlier this week that was just talking about mental health leave from your job. And just, we've all been in that place where your job is added stress, or it's, lending itself to creating more unhappiness. And sometimes you just need to like take a break from that, and not that solves all the problems, but take a break to get the space, the help, the support that you need. And talking about that more, especially in our executive roundtables, about not feeling ashamed of that, or not constantly feeling that you don't have that option, because
Mm-hmm.
the more we start to normalize taking what we need to get the support that we need to be unapologetically happy, the higher likelihood is that we can really embrace this theme, and all of us really see 2022 as that year for us.
I have a question. Did you like, I know we've talked about mental health leaves before in the context of Ellevate and our work, but I actually didn't know that mental health leave was something until like fairly recently, like a couple of years ago, maybe. So I'm glad to see that it's being talked about a little bit more. I don't know if you have had kind of knowledge about this, or it feels like it's something that's been there, but not really.
I don't think it's been there in a formal way. So at Ellevate, something, and Maricela, you're a big driver of this, and I want to acknowledge that. But in something we've tried to do within the organization is create space for people to talk about their mental health. It might just be, hey, the news really impacted me today. I'm just having a bad day, or something happened in my life that's really upsetting to me, or yeah, I maybe just lost a loved one, and I need the rest of I need this day off. I need to make that time in that space. And so it's about being able to talk about what's going on. And I say that that's so important because we always try and put these walls up between who we are as an individual and who we are as a professional. And thus you go into the workplace, and we spend a third or more of our lives in the workplace, be it virtual or in person. And when you can't acknowledge how you're feeling or how things are impacting you or what's going on, it feels even more stifling. It feels even more overwhelming. And so we at Ellevate have tried to really just create a more normalized conversation around that, where people, if they're comfortable, can share how they're feeling, can take some time if they need it. And that, we've heard from people on our team, has really helped them. They've said, it's amazing to work at a place that, supports me wholly, that gives me that option to take what I need, because, it matters.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm thank you for mentioning that I've been influential in this. The topic of mental health I could talk about for hours. I think it's so important. It's something I'm very interested and very passionate about personally, just, from my own anxiety and such. But it's normal. Like, if you look at the research, like, before pre-pandemic, it was like 1 in 5 Americans would at some point have mental health like issues. During COVID, that number rose significantly. And I like that we are being more open as a society to at least talking about it a little bit more. I think it depends too. Like, I've seen it a lot with my Latin friends and my family. Like, they are still kind of very refined and very not open to these conversations, but we'll get there. But it is important that we can take some time if we need to, and not just mental health leave, but even vacations, like even stepping away for a little bit. At that roundtable that I was talking about today, I asked the group if they had taken vacations, like an actual vacation in 2021. Only one person said she had taken vacations, and she said she had taken 4. And then me, I remembered I took 2, but everyone else had not taken time.
Well, you were giving me a hard time about that a couple days ago, Maricella. But
Mm-hmm.
I haven't taken any time. So, but I am, because 2022 is a year to be unapologetically happy, and at Ellevate, we are really committed to supporting those conversations. Just like you were saying, if I had been in that room, I would have been a catalyst for me to say, okay, I'm booking something right now. But to get that support, to have those real conversations, and to really own 2022 in a way that drives your happiness and fulfillment. This is our year, and we're looking forward to
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Do you have any intentions for 2022 already set besides taking that vacation? Because I will block your calendar if you don't do it yourself.
Thank you. Please do. No, so I tend to set goals for myself at the start of a year, and inevitably I don't accomplish them. Maybe that's being really vulnerable saying that, but it's true. And what I do accomplish is some like self loathing, because I set a goal for myself and I'm not doing anything to achieve it. It just kind of becomes this like negative cycle, and I don't want to do that this year. So what I'm going to do this year, and is just focus on me. What do I need every day? What is the thing I need? Maybe it's a walk. Maybe it's a conversation with a friend. Maybe it's some chocolate. I don't know. But just trying to be intentional of how I can bring joy into my life every day and savor those moments, and use that as a way for me to take a step every day towards what I think is an amazing overarching goal of just being unapologetically happy.
I like it. I like it. I agree with the goal setting. I'm much more about like setting an intention um, for the year, which is to be happy, to put myself first. But I do have a goal. I am running the New York City Marathon one way or another.
Woohoo!
We'll see how it goes.
Uh, I'm excited for that. I'll be cheering you on.
Yes.
You tried to get me to do it with you, and or to start running more with you, and I'm not quite there yet, but I will be cheering you on.
Well, I start with the Miami half marathon in a little bit over a month from now. So it'll be a year of running for me, hopefully, before I turn 40.
That sounds like an amazing year. I will be, like I said, I'll be cheering you on.
Thanks.
Well, I have had so much fun catching up with you, Maricella. The article we mentioned is published in Fortune, and the title is I took a mental health job leave. Here's why you should too. So when we share the episode on social, we'll be sure to include a link to the article in the comments. We want to hear from you. If you taken a mental health leave, or how is that being supported in your organization? Share with us. And we'd love to see you at one of our roundtables where we're having these conversations with peers and really being able to support one another and make 2022 the best year yet. It's worth it, I can assure you. On today's episode of the Ellevate podcast, we have a dynamic duo. We have June Sugiyama, who has been the director at Vodafone America's Foundation for the last 20 years, and Meena Palaniappan, who has launched technology projects in Africa and Asia as an environmental engineer and technologist. And the reason we have June and Meena on the podcast this week is really showing that intersection between how companies and innovation, companies and underserved communities, companies and creating systemic social change, and how relationships like June and Meena are ensuring that all of these things happen. How an organization like Vodafone Americas can live with its values, really create support and opportunity for these innovators and entrepreneurs who are changing the world. So I hope you enjoy this conversation today. It's a great one, I can assure you. Meena and June, welcome to the Ellevate podcast. It is wonderful to have you here today. And as we typically do on our show, we love storytelling. We want to hear all about our guests and how you got to where you are today. We know that careers and lives aren't straight lines, just get inspiration from each other. So, June, if you could kick us off and just share a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm currently the director of Vodafone America's Foundation. I was born and raised in Japan until the age of 12, but while I was in Japan, I went to American school. So that made me bilingual. And that's actually what carried me through a lot of my activism, as well as led me to the career on a long way, an up and down path, like you say, to my career where I am now. My bilingual ability allowed me to be active in the Japanese American community here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And then it also allowed me to get a job in various corporations that needed my Japanese bilingual ability. And that's how I ended up at the telecom company. And then I worked myself up to where I am now, which was through the corporation to foundation work and currently doing work with technology for social impact, which is how I met Meena. And really enjoying my work that combines philanthropy with technology and social impact, and meeting people like Meena and lots of other folks that have incredible out of the box thinking for tackling some of the critical issues that we're facing right now, like climate change, health in urban areas, and many, many other things, even all the way to domestic violence. So, our target is to empower women and girls through technology. And that's why we met Meena.
Yeah. Awesome. So, Kristy, it's great to be on here, and especially with June, who's been such an incredible supporter of our journey to build technology for social good, to create the world that we want, where women are empowered and we're addressing existential threats like climate change and giving people the tools to take collective action to create the world that they want. More about me and my journey. I was born also outside of the US in India. And I've just started to realize that, just part of my origin was maybe sort of like what has become really important in my work. I was born as the third girl in my family in India. And as a result of that, and sort of like all of the pressures of dowry, my parents immigrated to the US, leaving me in India to be raised by my grandparents. And I came to the US later in life, and really wanted to solve these problems of the kinds of things that we value in the world. So, really dedicated my career to people and the planet. And as I was working on water and climate and water and sanitation internationally, just increasingly saw that women that didn't have water had mobile phones, and started to go on a journey of how could we use mobile phones as a way to empower people through connection. So instead of telling poor people what to do or collecting information from poor people, how could we create this bottom up movement for social change? And that's what we've done with the support of Vodafone Americas and many others. We've created a Neighbors Helping Neighbors platform called Atmago that's reached over 8 million people in Indonesia and Puerto Rico, where people have been able to respond to disaster, helping each other find food and water. And in Puerto Rico, people are addressing food insecurity by planting gardens and taking collective action to be prepared for the next disaster. So that's a little bit about my journey.
Well, thank you both for sharing that. And, I think this is such an important conversation. We have, over the past year alone, been reading stories about, technology used for misinformation or around, governments controlling access to technology for communication. There's, I think, a lot of examples of when it doesn't work. And here is a powerful example of when it does, and why and how technology can really be used to create community, to create awareness, and to create support. June, I'm curious. I mean, how do you personally connect with this? And, how were you able to get Vodafone behind this and really driving this initiative?
Well, thank you. I mean, that really kind of gets at the core of most of the people that are working in this field, technology for social impact. My background is a teaching background. I was trained in college to be a teacher, and I taught for a little while. And most teachers have the students' well being in mind, right? So that's kind of our thought process. And I think it's the same thought process with the entrepreneurs who are in the social impact space, is that many of them are already embedded within the community or ensconced in how the community works. So they know some of the critical needs of the community. And so they're able to kind of combine that understanding of the social need together with their technology know how. And we ourselves started on this journey by first providing scholarships to some of the leading technology universities and colleges. And we were finding that, we weren't really getting at what we wanted to do to solve problems. It was just taking too long. Some of the research out there was more than 10 years and on. So we decided to put together a challenge. And this was a big endeavor for us and a big risk, because in those days, which is almost 15 years ago now, people weren't doing that through their foundations, their corporate foundations. But we put together a challenge called the Wireless Innovation Program, um, Wireless Innovation Project, actually, to find the best social innovation. And at that time, through mobile. And we just found incredible, like I say, out of the box thinkers that helped solve, the water problem, help for domestic violence survivors, clean toilets, wildlife conservation. It was just really incredible. Obviously, I'm not an engineer. I mean, that was also the risk. How am I going to be able to evaluate and find the best and the finest out there? I had some help from our own company, engineers, and they were our advisors. And here we are, and we've morphed that into what we have now. And partnering with a great organization like MIT Solve, that's has a global reach to find these entrepreneurs. And you know, I think it's the character. It's not only the technical know-how that these folks have, but like Meena, they have um, the understanding of their communities, as well as their philosophy of do no harm. And that's why, like you mentioned, most of these people are not using their talents and their technology skills, um, uh, to harm the environment or to work against the folks that they're actually trying to help. So it's a different kind of people with lots of passion, lots of insight, and then obviously very intelligent folks that have the engineering and technological know-how.
And Meena, I hear all the time from the women in our community this idea of finding purpose in their work, something that gets them out of bed every day, and that they feel that they can really have an impact on the topics that they care about. And I do think for a lot of us, for a while, it was a situation whereby you work to make a living, and then you have your impact in other ways, volunteering or community service or what have you. But we're really seeing this great time of businesses as a force for good, really seeing business solve some of these social problems. And so for you, was there a specific catalyst that led you to start this organization, and how have you been able to really take your expertise and your passion and purpose and create something of meaning for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say that it is amazing to have to work somewhere where you're excited to get out of bed and you have a North Star that's so exciting and compelling. And, I would say that when I started the organization, I really wanted to create impact organization that reached the scale of Facebook and Twitter. It's like, if we can, have this scale in traditional tech organizations, what an incredible force that would be to use that for social good, to address inequality, to address gender-based violence, and climate change. It's just such an incredible opportunity. And I really felt that the most important, the way that we reach scale was to take a human-centered design journey and to use lean startup principles. So to constantly be iterating and shifting and responding to the needs of users. So that's really been the journey, and that's really what's exciting, is that it's constantly evolving with sort of um, these incredible moments along the way. So Vodafone America's foundation, in addition to all of these incredible efforts that June mentioned, they sponsored this Tech for Good challenge competition that I entered with a co-founder. We built a team over the weekend, and it was the first thing that we had done, really, to get into this space, and created with this team this peer-to-peer communication tool for sharing water price information. And June was there at the event, and announced us as the winners of the challenge. And that was really sort of the first step in a journey that has been winding, because we're responding to what it is users want and need. So it turned into a hyper local social network, and people started using it around disaster. Mercy Corps and Vodafone then helped bring this to Puerto Rico, which studies are saying is sort of a canary in the coal mine when it comes to climate change and extreme weather events. So it's been incredible to see the impact. And it's really those stories of a woman on the ground who found water after a disaster through our platform. People that are organizing to prevent the next disaster by planting mangrove trees. It's those stories that get me out of bed in the morning, and I think keep all of us in the game to create this future where technology is a tool for a better world.
Yeah, and I love those stories, and I love Puerto Rico too. So, thank you for your efforts to to help combat, some of these issues like climate change, and bringing communities together to take action, right? And oftentimes in these situations, as individuals, we may feel powerless, or that we don't have the ability to create change. With those examples of planting mango trees and taking some action is really powerful. June, as a leader in corporate America, how have you seen, and what advice do you have for this changing landscape of companies who are really a force for good and looking to create more impact? I think especially within the foundations and philanthropies, it's changed a lot over the past couple of years with how hands-on companies are, how they're driving innovation, how they're really supporting some of these social and environmental issues that are increasingly more prevalent in our lives. And I know with our community, we have a number of business leaders who are asking themselves, how do I get my company to do more? How do I get my organization to be a driver for change? And I was wondering, June, if you could share some of your advice for how you've been able to really build something this powerful and this successful.
Yeah, right. In the corporate world, in corporate philanthropy, it's a little bit different than community foundations or private foundations. I think people have found that they really need an alignment. The corporate business needs an alignment with what they do in philanthropy, and I think that's really a good idea. And that's why you're saying, companies have hands on and they use their employees and their talents and skills to be used to make the world, their immediate community, a better place. And I'm all for it. Um, and for people who are starting out, I do understand it's a big risk because it's a change in mindset, and it takes it's time intensive, it takes money, and it also takes convincing the leadership as well as your employees that they have the ability to do this and create change. It's difficult in the beginning. I mean, it took us for us to be on our pathway for technology for social impact rather than providing straight grants. Um, it took about a year's worth of planning. And then, definitely it was iteration after iteration and um, changing our model to be where we are. And it's so funny. I mean, when we first started, some of our applicants had fintech, so financial technology for banking access and credit development. We only had a few entrants in the very beginning. And now, when I'm judges at some of these challenges, and challenges um, are dime a dozen now. There are many contests out there for social impact technology, out there. And I was at a recent event, and there were so many fintech applications, and it's become so popular. And it's really a good sign for me. It makes me very proud that we kind of was part of the trend that we started. So I'd say, just to wrap it up, as far as advice is to take a risk, do your research. It does take a while to do that, and then learn from the people who are working with you, because we really learn from our applicants and what's needed out there and why they're doing what they're doing. And so we just continue to remold our competition from the advice that we've received from our own applicants.
And Meena, as you've been growing your efforts, any leadership lessons? What would have been some of the key learnings or takeaways for you?
Yeah, I think COVID was, you know, definitely a place where there are a lot of leadership lessons that uh, we learned and implemented. So it was really amazing to have this ability to rapidly respond, and that's really the power of technology and a lean organization, So when we did a survey of our users, found that there was increasing anxiety and as a result of the pandemic and the job loss. There were also increasing cases of domestic violence happening um, around the world, and due to lockdowns and a lot of the stress and anxiety. And so, one of the things that we did was partnered with in Indonesia, the Psychological Association there, to create free telecounseling services. And a majority of the clients for this free telecounseling are women, and it's been really incredible to provide that resource, almost immediately for the people that needed it most. So I would say a leadership lesson is be responsive to the needs of your users and your customers, because it continues to build this trust that then allows the organization and the impact to grow. Um, so I'll leave it at that. I think there are also a lot of just being aware that everyone around has been affected. So folks in the organization, in the engineering team got COVID, and just seeing the differential rollout of vaccines all over the world, it just being really being a supportive organization to kind of help staff and users and the community be able to navigate this pandemic and together.
Yeah, I mean it's real time. I think leadership and for your employees, seeing the impact of the work that they do and being responsive to that. And I think that's great advice. Meena, can you share with our listeners how they can better support your efforts and learn more?
Yeah, absolutely. We can be found at atmaconnect.org, and would love to engage with tech for good companies like Vodafone and individuals who are interested in really creating a better world through technology and empowering people on the ground to connect with each other and to take collective action. So, and we'd love to hear from folks and and really develop the partnerships to take this to much larger scale. So to get from the 8 million people that we've reached so far to being a billion users all around the world that are connected, working together to create real world impact.
Perfect. And June, I would love to learn more about Vodafone's efforts and how our community can get more involved.
Sure. Vodafone is a global technology company, and we have quite a different model than many other corporations who have a philanthropic arm. We actually have 26 foundations worldwide. They're independent foundations with board members and their own strategy and targets, but we all work in the arena of technology for good. And here in the US, I run the Vodafone Americas Foundation. We have a lot of technology for social impact projects that they can look up and even be involved with some of our nonprofit partners that we have. Like Meena was mentioning, giving women voices. We have another organization called World Pulse that helps women come together and organize and share their stories. We have online SOS that helps women that have been stalked and what they should do, where they can get resources. Partnered with YR Radio that helps young people be trained in media, and a really neat organization called Witness about how to be a witness in incidents and be able to use your camera and your camera phone effectively. So look up any of these organizations and be involved or donate. And, there's a lot you can do that you'd be surprised.
Perfect. Well, Meena and June, thank you for joining us today on the Ellevate podcast.
Thanks so much for joining us this week for a conversation with June and Meena. Maricella, are you excited to hear who's coming on next week?
Give me some clues.
We have, she named after one of my favorite books. Scout Sobel is the founder of Scouts Agency. She's co-host of the popular OK Sis podcast and the best-selling author of The Emotional Entrepreneur. And as a continuation of our conversation today around mental health in the workplace, Scout and I go deep on mental health, on building businesses, on relationships, and more. It's a fantastic conversation, and I can't wait to see all of our listeners back here next week when I talk with Scout.
Can't wait. And listeners, if you want to chat with us, if you want to engage, come to one of our roundtables, the Ellevate roundtables. The executive roundtables are hosted by Kristy on Tuesdays at 1
Eastern.
And the Rising Leader roundtables are hosted by yours truly on Thursdays at noon Eastern. Honestly, great topics coming up. And it's a great group. They're really great groups of people. So hope to see you there.
And don't forget, we have our holding space forums for the Black women in our community, LGBTQAI, as well as seasoned professionals. So there's so many places for you to have those real, honest conversations and get that support that you need. And we look forward to seeing you there.
Thanks so much for listening to Ellevate. If you like what you hear, help a girl out. Subscribe to the Ellevate podcast on iTunes. Give us 5 stars and share your review. Also, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at EllevateNTWK, that's Ellevate Network. And become a member. You can learn all about membership and all the great things that Ellevate Network is doing at our website, www.ellevatenetwork.com. That's ELLEVATE network.com. And special thanks to our producer, Catherine Heller. She rocks. And to our voiceover artist, Rachel Griesinger. Thanks so much, and join us next week.